Good evening and welcome to Pierce Politics. Today's a special edition. We're going to recap Pancakes and Politics from last Monday, where 25 students from Franklin Pierce University got to be part of a Today Show special in Atkins, New Hampshire, with Matt Lauer, the Today Show crew, and Donald Trump. So, thank you, Danielle and Ronnie, for joining us.
Thanks for having us.
Once again. So, Danielle, you got to attend the Pancakes and Politics last Monday. What was your overall opinion about it?
I thought it was awesome. It was really, inclusive. They had a lot of people on set, so it was really cool to see the behind-the-scenes part of it. But in terms of the criteria that Trump talked about, there were questions from the audience that he was able to answer. And from a critical perspective, there was a lot of dodging questions. I think he's really good at that. He was, good with his words, very prepared. But I think that he was able to answer a lot of the personal questions people felt strongly about. People had questions consulting whether or not, he was addressing certain issues like the middle class, foreign policy. So, there was a lot of heart behind questions, and because it was such a small group of people, it was personal. And I think that he answered them perfectly, and, it was great.
That's great. So, Ronnie, you got to actually talk to Donald Trump about 2 Wednesdays ago on the Herald Radio, and after the polls came out for the second time for Franklin Pierce and Boston Herald, and you talked about Afghanistan, right, Ron?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I talked about him flip-flopping on his position about whether or not America was right or not, to be involved in Afghanistan.
So did you find that a pretty good experience, or do you think he answered your question? Or?
He definitely didn't answer my question. I wrote a scathing article in the Boston Herald the next day, sort of attacking him, saying, you want to be a politician, you want to be president of the United States, you can't answer the question of a freshman college student. And one of the interesting things that I noticed was Jacqueline Cashman and Tony Signoli on the radio, I think it was Morning Drive. They were asking simple questions, honestly, and this isn't me trying to be shallow or braggadocious at all. I feel my question was the hardest one that he had to answer the entire half hour he was on the radio. So, but it was a good experience, yes.
What do you think about those comments, Daniel, that if Donald Trump wants to be president of the United States and be the politician that he claims he is, do you think that by dodging questions that's acceptable, or do you find that unacceptable?
It's funny he said that the same thing happened at the Today Show. One of the kids who asked a question actually had to reiterate the question a couple times, and Matt Lauer was like, look, Trump, answer the question. So I think that he does have a hard time directly answering questions. He goes about it in his own way, and it's more of a general statement. I don't doubt that he has specific plans. I'm not really sure if they're practical, and I think that he knows that. The wall, for example, I think that's a great example of him just not having this, realistic idea. So he probably has these ideas, and for whatever reason.
But do you find it acceptable that if he wants to be the president of the United States that he can dodge questions?
No, not at all. I think if you're campaigning to be president, you need to be able to answer hard questions to the point, and he has a hard time facing that.
Now, Ronnie, do you think there's any one candidate out there right now that really is answering all the questions right on the nose and not being afraid to put their face out?
One of those things about being a politician myself is I know that there's not a single politician, as much as we might want there to be, that will answer every question asked. I do my best to try and answer some questions, but there are just some questions that if I answer, I'm going to be made to be a fool almost, because I just simply don't know what I'm talking about. I'm not well versed in it. And I think the candidates from experience know that, and they're using that experience to their advantage.
Well, would you find that there's one or two candidates right now that are really answering questions head on, not trying to dodge questions, or find it as a neutral, non-satisfactory answers?
It's just non-satisfactory answers. I mean, they try to give you the best answer they can without digging themselves or painting themselves into a corner. And I guess, like I said earlier, being a politician, I kind of understand that mentality. I understand where they're coming from. And the sort of protecting your reputation method that they use. So, I mean, the answers they give are acceptable only because I understand why they're giving them the way that they are.
No, Danielle, earlier today and on last Monday, you were a little bit critical about the fact that Franklin Pierce students weren't allowed to ask questions. You felt that some of the questions that the other students asked were, kind of softball questions, and that, take me through that. Why do you think that way, or do you think that Franklin Pierce students would be able to ask, more tougher questions?
Honestly, I'm not sure. I think it was rigged. There were a total of 3 St. A's kids, and all 3 of them got to ask questions. And then you have 25 students representing Franklin Pierce, someone who's, helped contributing to the polls, yet no one asked a question. And compared to the questions that were asked, I think that the majority of students, me included, had, hardball questions, specific questions, and the ones that were being asked were easier, which is why I think that Trump, did what he did and, curved around them, but like beat around the bush. I'm not entirely sure why they did that, especially because
but you have the opportunity right now to ask Donald Trump a question. What would you be asking him?
Oh, so in terms of, this is one of my questions I wanted to ask. In terms of budgeting, I know that Trump is, not a politician and he's one of finance. He says he's going to make all these cuts. The spending's going to go, towards other things, but I want to know what he's cutting, where he's putting the money. I want to know what he's doing in terms of welfare, Medicaid, Social Security, and student loans. That was my main question. What is he going to do to help student loans if he's an advocate for the middle class? No one's going to be able to pay for these student loans. There's no Social Security account. It's being defunded because, it's being used up. So I want to know where he's going to get the money, how he's going to fund the money, and, if that's not his main priority, what is?
Ronnie, you obviously asked a really tough question, Donald Trump already, but what question would you would have asked him on the Today Show last Monday if you had the chance?
It'd probably be, and it's taking from a good friend's question, and a perfect question, honestly. I don't think I could think of a better one. Is Twitter your only real method of attacking and, talking to other candidates? We've seen him attack Jeb Bush. We've seen him get into scuffles with Marco Rubio. He attacked, at one point over the summer, he attacked Arizona Senator McCain, saying he wasn't a war hero. And that, for a good week, brought the entire Republican Party together. I mean, I remember favoriting and retweeting stuff from Mitt Romney. And, I normally don't pay any attention to what Mitt Romney has to say. So I'd want to know why he does it and, try to just get inside of his head and his mentality about, why do you use Twitter as your only method of attack?
Well, why do you think that is the case? Do you think that's a good strategy? Right now he's leading the polls, or do you find it as not so good strategy when it comes to the general election?
Well, 2 things. He's not necessarily, nationally he's no longer leading from the NBC Wall Street Journal. He's behind Carson 6 points nationally. So, I mean, we kind of see that his Trump's rhetoric has sort of, since it's toned down, hurt him quite a bit. So I think if he picks that back up, it's going to bring him back up in the polls, but overall it's going to hurt him in the general election. If it's a Clinton Trump race, no one's going to want a president who's judging women based on their physical appearances. I mean, if we look back at the second Republican debate, within 30 seconds of being recognized by the moderators, he was attacking Rand Paul, calling him a loser because he was in 11th place polling so low.
Danielle, recently Lindsey Graham has gotten a lot of a little bit of hype, attention from a lot of his comments. He had the Republican debate, and I really want to get your opinion. Do you think that the Republican Party needs to start getting into that mentality of some of the other non-politicians of sound bites and becoming more famous on Twitter in order to get back into the race, or do you just find that the Republican Party is going to continue to do what they've done in the past and just run on their rhetoric?
Well, I think that with this campaign in particular, because there's so many non-politicians, and with Hillary Clinton and Trump using social media to their advantage, it's kind of just, it's a new race, it's a new way of campaigning, and I don't think that Trump or Hillary or anybody for that matter using these new tactics is going to back down. So in order to win and to compete, you're going to have to change. So I do think the Republican Party is going to have to start using social media and these other tactics that Trump is using to his benefit to start really kind of campaigning and competing.
And quick prediction, do you find that that's going to help them in the long run win the general election, or do you think it's going to be Donald Trump, Ben Carson, or Carla Fiorina win this election?
I think it will help people in the long run, like who aren't polling as high as Trump or Carson. There's still time, and I think that as soon as it gets closer, people are going to start really getting realistic and, seeing through a lot of the illusions that media can cast over the general public. But it's a tactic, and I think that people are just strategically, kind of coming to their own. So the polls that are polling now aren't going to be polling in the future.
So you find that the polls right now aren't going to be the prediction.
I don't think if you have the top or the bottom, it by no means means like
Any
you're going to
predictions though for who's going to be the one to come on top, or?
I feel like every day my opinion changes. At one point I really thought Fiorina was going to be at the top, but I don't see that as much because people are skeptical of a woman being president. And for a long time too, I thought Trump was up there. But as of right now, I don't know, I guess either Bush or I guess Carson.
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah, I mean, after Carson said that the whole Muslim thing, it was like people criticized him but then got back onto liking him.
Final question, Ron, we'll end with you. Who won the debate? Who lost the debate?
Big winner Marco Rubio. Big loser Jeb Bush. He allowed his basically apprentice, in essence, to show him up on the debate stage in front of I don't know how many million people. It was interesting to see because he sort of Jeb Bush walked into the trap of Marco Rubio, but there was an interesting thing where I think it was Trump or Bush that called him out on his missing so many Senate votes and saying basically either do your job or resign and run for president. As we know, Marco Rubio after this election will no longer be a senator. He's not seeking re-election, so I think he's got a lot to lose. So he's gonna go out. He's gonna go and fight his hardest and try and win. So I think he's the biggest winner.
It's like shaking your head, Danielle. Any disagreement with that?
I just don't like Marco Rubio. Not a fan.
Well, thank you guys for joining us. We're going to take a quick break, and after the break, we're going to have a special guest from Franklin Pierce Track and Field, so stay tuned.
Thank you.
That was a great workout today.
I know, I'm really happy with our progress.
I'm so glad we're living a healthier lifestyle.
I know, it's awesome. So you coming to the party later tonight?
Yeah, obviously I'll be there.
Oh, word.
So,
Can't wait.
see you later.
See ya.
Welcome back to Pierce Politics. We're joined now by two very special guests. Ian Corey, who's the Vice President of PSPA, Pierce Students for Political Awareness, and Nick Kozel, a member of the Franklin Pierce Track and Field team here. So thank you for joining us, guys.
Thanks. Pleasure to be here. It is.
So, Ian, you're obviously in the New Hampshire primary class.
Yes.
Here at campus, and pretty active in politics. The recent polls came out for the Boston Herald Franklin Pierce poll. Give us a little bit of your overview. What do you see that was surprising to you, or what are you looking to see in the future?
I was actually really surprised on not only our poll, but like the later polls as well for the Democrats, because back in August we started the trend that Bernie Sanders is beating Clinton, but with this most recent poll, it seems to be flip-flopping. We have like the Boston Globe poll saying that Clinton's ahead. We have the the Marist poll, I think also saying Clinton's ahead. We said that Sanders is ahead. I think YouGov said Sanders is ahead. Right now the polls seem pretty divided, and I want to see the poll in January. I wish we could poll again. I want to see what the the new numbers are, since I think the debate really made people think.
In what way do you think they thought, though? Do you think they thought, maybe we got to give some of these, less celebritized politicians a chance, or do you think that, hey, maybe Donald Trump or Ben Carson are the answer?
As far as the Republican poll, it just stayed Trump, but you can see Carson start to increase in numbers, certainly. And I think I think it's a good thing to look at these these non-traditional politicians, the non-politician people running for president. I think it's an interesting trend, and maybe a lot of people are just kind of sick of the same old politician running for president. They don't want a politician. They want somebody. They want something different, because we've had the same old politicians. Politicians have ruined Congress. So
yeah. So Nick, you're obviously you're a marketing major here on campus.
Yep.
With minor in accounting, and you've mentioned multiple times that you need a job after college, like many other college students out there in the world, here in New Hampshire, in any other state. So, my question really is, Nick, what would you say to a politician right now that was looking to run for president? Would you say that jobs would be the number one thing you're looking for, or?
Yeah, definitely within this presidential campaign, I'm definitely feeling jobs are my number one priority. I think for the presidential candidate, I just read up the other day actually on Trump saying that his number one of his first priorities is to bring more jobs back to the U.S. and lower the unemployment rate even more. I mean, we have more jobs currently, which is great, but especially for college graduates, whether they be from undergrad or graduate school, still looking for jobs. And some of them are getting the jobs they want, but some are just settling for like a cashier job. And I think you should be able to get the job in your field for what you're going to school for.
So you mentioned Donald Trump. Donald Trump is someone who's all around New Hampshire with his signs, his poll numbers. People have some sort of buzz for him around this campus and everywhere else. Would you say that Donald Trump is a good candidate when it comes to getting jobs, or do you find that just kind of hush hush Twitter talk?
Well, I mean, yes, I know his Twitter talk isn't the most favorable on social media, but I mean, he's a businessman, he's an entrepreneur, he's one of the most successful men in America. I mean, as we saw on his TV show The Apprentice, which ran for quite a few years, so many people came out of it successful. I mean, I think he has some characteristics that he still needs to build up on, that people may hopefully, if he actually lets people answer their like ask him questions, then I think if he cleans up his act, I think he could be a very good leader for this country.
Very good answer there. So Ian, you get a good sense of diversity, I imagine, when it comes to politics and political talk around campus every day. From class to your general friend group to wherever it is. What would you say is like the buzz around campus right now with who are the top politician people are really supporting right now?
Yeah, I think there's a saying like something along the lines of you get old, you start young, you're a liberal, and then you get older and you become a conservative. I think there's a lot of talk of I hear a lot about Bernie Sanders, and I know he's our neighbor, right in Vermont, but I think it's kind of, I think it's pretty much through a lot of college campuses. A lot of the youth are talking about Bernie Sanders because I think the youth are talking about Bernie Sanders because he's talking about what they want to hear,
Which is what?
Which I think is, you have the large. The wage inequality, where the youth are feeling it. The minimum wage job, $7.25 an hour. He's talking about college debt, and he's talking about eliminating college debt. and again, like with, following the liberal ideology, you're talking about um, helping up the lower class, the middle classes, and putting harsher restrictions on those who society has shown like have done better in life.
So, you say he's talking about these things. In your own opinion, what would you say that Bernie Sanders is able to, if elected president, capitalize on his talk and be able to accomplish some of these things, or do you just feel like that America isn't ready for some of these changes?
I think it's really interesting, like his ideology, his ideological position. He calls himself a social democrat, and you have European countries, social democrat is a party. I think it might be a little too tax heavy for America. America doesn't like taxes. But I will say that I don't know if necessarily, if he does get elected president, obviously enough people think, what he wants to get done is realistic. I think he's going to have a harder time in Congress because right now you have a sweeping majority of Republicans that are in Congress and, both in the House and Senate. And, if he gets elected, I don't know how willing they're going to work with him.
Yeah, so you see like maybe the people are ready for it. It's not necessarily Congress is ready for it in some ways.
Right. Yeah. Because, you see a lot of incumbents. The incumbent always gets, reelected.
Yeah. So Nick, same thing with you. You're around necessarily politics all day, but you're around different people, whether it's doing shot put or in your classes. What would you say the buzz is around campus when someone says the word politics or presidential election? What is the first thing that you hear for support or negativity?
Well, I mean, I've heard a lot of opinions about the presidential candidates. I've been told I feel it's really. I've heard many people going for Bernie Sanders. I've heard a lot of people going for Hillary Clinton, which, yes, I do feel she would also not be a bad leader. And it's also, yes, it's not a male, but it's a female. It's another change. I mean, we had Barack Obama, the first African-American president. Now we might even have the first female president.
Do you think America's ready for a female, or?
Honestly, I feel maybe America could be ready for anything. I mean, hey, if she's elected, I think she could do very good things for our country. If Carson's elected, if Sanders is elected, it'll be interesting to see who wins and what they could do.
So you see like people talking about the main thing. Do you ever feel like that people sometimes are talking about like lesser candidates, like maybe like a Jeb Bush or?
I mean, I've been told people like everyone thinks like Jeb Bush didn't really have that really good of a debate. Some people, I know Carson, there's people starting to back up Carson a little bit. He's starting to gain a little more recognition, so he is behind Trump. I know Trump did win. He is in the lead, but I think Carson is close to it, so I think he's going to be close. It's going to be close in the end.
So, finish up here. Ian, if you were to talk to one candidate right now, say the candidate was looking into the camera right now, and you had to tell them what was the key success of getting a college vote in America right now from a 20-year-old college student, what would you tell them?
I'd probably say, talk about, the youth getting jobs. Talk about, reforming student debt. Because really, that's the thing on the youth mind, right? You look at the 18 to 24 age bracket. Unfortunately, we don't vote. We hardly vote. But if you can get enough movement behind, I'm sure people will, crawl out and they'll vote. But talk about the youth jobs. Talk about, college debt.
And we'll let you finish up, Nick. If you were to ask a candidate one question right now, they were looking into that screen, what would you ask them?
Well, I mean, not trying to copy what Ian said, but kind of the same thing. Like, will I be guaranteed a job? Like, obviously, as everybody here, I mean, they want to get a job. They want to make good money, make a living for themselves. They want to have enough money to pay off the loans. I don't want to be in debt. I mean, I would look any one of those candidates and say, what could you do for me to guarantee that I get that job?
Yeah.
That's what I want to know.
All right. Well, thank you for tuning in to Pierce Politics and on FPTV 25.1. I'm Alex Malm, host. This is Ian Corey and Nick Ozell signing out.